Born and raised San Antonio, Texas, a native of San Antonio. I grew up on the far west side of San Antonio and was raised in the south side, so like west side, south side. My family is really huge. I'm first generation here. My family is from Veracruz, Mexico. And yeah, I just grew up in a really big family on the west side.
Awesome. So tell me, so for instance, if someone never knew what the west side of San Antonio was like, could you tell me a little bit about that?
Very colorful, very warm, very delicious, lots of food. I think San Antonio is a food-based culture. So that, I think, kind of epitomizes the west side, and definitely family forward. We have really strong family ideals and like seeing each other every single week. That's definitely the environment.
Good. And what about the south side? You mentioned the south side of San Antonio.
The south side of San Antonio is super historical. It's really, really old, and I like to think that all of the grandmas and tias are from the south side. So it definitely has that like warmth to it, where you can go there and know that you're being taken care of.
Good. You mentioned your family. You have a very big family. Can you tell me, like, if you have any siblings, any brothers, sisters, mom, dad?
Yes. So I actually have 4 parents because my parents divorced, and then they both remarried. But I have 4 siblings, 2 little brothers, a big brother, and a big sister.
Okay. What was your education like growing up in San Antonio?
It was actually really good. I consider myself like a survivor of like the public school system because I did have a really good opportunity. In elementary school, I was always doing advanced classes, and I did, what was that? It was called accelerated math. So I was introduced to trigonometry and like calculus at a very young age and doing like mathlete stuff. But I also got to do a bunch of GT stuff, which I met a lot of really advanced students. So we were able to do a lot of advanced learning together, which is what got me interested in like theater and art. And that's what I did for most of middle school and high school, was theater and film and journalism.
You bring up a great point, and I'm going to ask it. So you said that you were a first-generation citizen here in the United States. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How do you think that played a part in the quality of education that you got in San Antonio?
I think it was really just lucky. Like, that's with public schools, it's really like a hit or miss. And like, luckily I was able to get into like good programs and be around good places. But because my family, because I'm a first generation American in my family, school was super prioritized. So being as engaged as possible was definitely promoted and emphasized in my family.
You mentioned earlier that you were a survivor of the school system, the public school system. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I think that especially with my family pressure, I was able to be really engaged, but like my big brother didn't graduate from high school, and my sister barely graduated from high school because she had a baby when she was 17. So I just think that the system isn't necessarily there to like feed into people's interests and talents and abilities, and I know that both of my siblings are like really capable, but they just weren't given the right opportunities to engage them.
Very good. I'm going to move down a little bit further. I'm going to go a little further, but we may come back to that. I just want to let you know that. Okay. So how would you say other people in your life, like your family, your close friends, how would they describe you?
I would definitely say like go-getter and just like ready and nice.
Good, good. Okay, so today's project, the oral history project, it is about stories. you came here to tell the story. What made you, I guess, what was the thing that said, yes, go tell that story? Like, why did you come and tell your story?
I think just like the warmness and the openness of speaking with Steve Miller, him just talking about the importance of storytelling and how everybody's story counts, and how people can learn from it. Today I just came to interview him, but after I interviewed him, he was like, now you are getting interviewed. So I'm just staying open to the process, and really, as a journalist, knowing how important stories are. And especially with this project, like being in San Antonio, there's so much to speak on in the segregation of San Antonio. I think the city historically has a lot of like history that has been buried, and now it's slowly but surely like coming to surface in our children, in our communities, and it's something that should be discussed.
Very good. With that being said, so there's a lot of history that has taken place in San Antonio, and you think that a lot of people aren't aware of it, but they're slowly but surely coming to awareness of it. Okay.
Yeah, like specifically one of the main stories that gave me a lot of insight on where San Antonio is at as far as like its compassion goes back to one of our landmarks in the city, the Hemisphere Park. That like in the 60s, a lot of people have a really good memories. It's all positive. Like you got to see the fair. It was like a world fair. It was a really huge moment that put San Antonio on the map where the Hemisphere was built. But a lot of people don't realize that in order to create that infrastructure, a whole neighborhood was leveled. Like downtown San Antonio, before it was downtown San Antonio, used to be a historically black neighborhood. And I didn't know about that until I went to an installation at SAC, which is San Antonio Youth Yes. And some of the students, it's an art program there, and these students had recreated the neighborhood in shoe boxes. So they recreated the streets, and they had those little like monuments there with some of the families, and they're just like, the Hemisphere is cool, but please remember these families. And all of those families that were leveled out and kind of left with nowhere to go were pushed to the east side, where I think that's like one of the beginnings of segregation in San Antonio.
Do you think it's important to preserve like historical neighborhoods and things like that?
Yes, like San Antonio is a super historically rich city, and like it's really old. We just celebrated our tricentennial. It's 300 years. We celebrated with New Orleans. We were established at the same time, and we have a lot of the same like cultural strengths, but also before 300 years, before the cities were established by like, I guess we can call them colonizers because they low-key were, like those people, there were people before that where we have to recognize them too. So I think that finding strength in like history is really important, and I think it's important to work diligently to preserve that. Like the East Side has a lot of really important culture that I think they do a pretty good job at preserving, but on the South Side, I think a lot of that is looked over. There's like a really rich like ranchero history on the South Side where a lot of Latino people like grew up farming and grew up in those kinds of experiences. And now there's like a Toyota plant, there's the new A&M campus, which is really cool. And I hope that they will work diligently to preserve those experiences, because that's what makes the city who we are.
Very good. I want to ask you a question. Have you ever personally experienced any racism or anything like that?
Definitely. I actually am part of an art collective in San Antonio called House of Kenzo, and we are signed to a record label in Houston, Texas called Halcyon Vale, and we've been working all over Texas for almost 4 years, but we're composed of lots of different diverse personalities. Our captain, his name is Karma Stiles, and he comes from the east side of San Antonio. He was classically trained at the Carver Center here as a baby, and he grew up, and now he lives in New York, and he's worked with Nike, he's worked with Balenciaga, Gucci. He's walked all of the runways, and he's like a product of San Antonio's east side and the programs that were given to him as a child. And then we have Breezy Renee, which is also another dancer who is classically trained at the Carver Center. And both of those people are Black, and they taught us how to dance. And then we also have like Antonio Padron, who comes from Pleasanton, Texas, which is a little bit south of San Antonio. He is Mexican, and he's a really good dancer. Then we have Jamel Williams, AKA La Def. He's a producer, and he's half Mexican and half Black. And he's had like, he's had that blend of culture. Although he's a grandma's boy, he's a grandma's boy. But our other members are me and Bobby Bears, who is another really talented Black dancer. And having this whole spectrum of like colors and flavors, but also the fact that the spectrum includes queerness. These are boys in platform heels, just like girls wearing crazy lingerie with like crazy rainbow outfits, like going out and putting on a show. It's definitely been a challenge for us to be accepted by the world, both for being powerful women, but just existing.
So this happened in San Antonio?
Well, it's like a few things. Like, we just recently went to Poland, so that was like a big deal for people from San Antonio to go anywhere internationally is like a huge deal. But when we were there, like, they were actually going through a referendum, which I think like a lot of Eastern European countries are going through. And it's like, when we performed there was like a conservative like rally, and being like since it's Eastern European, like there's no color anywhere. And so when we went there, and it's just like, you know, who we are and how we act, it was, I think, like shocking to a lot of people. And because we were with the festival, it was super chill. Like, we had our own, like, we called them babysitters because we act out, so we need someone to take care of us over there. But like, it was all chill until we had to go to the airports, and that's when we started experiencing like extraness from the security there. That went as far as like, especially for Breezy, because Breezy has the most attitude, she's the most fierce one, and she also has the most melanin. And they were doing excessive searching with her in the airports, and it's like, we're not gonna leave our friend alone. So we just had to like watch that. And then just like, even after that, we were just like shopping and like getting chips and like water, and they searched her again. And it's just like, we're literally just waiting to like get on our plane. So that was like really jarring. But even in San Antonio, we threw the first Rainbow Extravaganza, which was a Vogue ball, where like you don't really see that happen in San Antonio. And we did it at a dance studio. So it was like a really safe space, like being in an educational like dance environment. And it was a really positive and like popular event. We had a lot of people turn out, and we had a really, really good show. Like, everyone was dancing, and on the final category, like we also gave out over $500 in cash prizes to like all of the up and coming legendary children. And then in like the last moments, we totally got rated, like insane rated. And like, this was our first show, like our first event we had ever thrown in San Antonio. Like, we weren't even known that well at that time. This was like in 2013. And out of nowhere, like these cops all just came in and they had like 3 paddy wagons just like ready to arrest everyone. And like, we didn't even realize how they had found out about the event or what had happened, but they had actually sent in undercover cops to a rainbow extravaganza, which was really interesting. But at the end of the day, I got arrested. I went to jail for throwing a party. And then Breezy, she was assaulted by the police in front of everyone. It was 2 huge San Antonio Vice Squad cops pushed her up against a wall in the studio. And like, she was 100% body painted because it was a rainbow extravaganza event. And by the end of the whole like scuffle and like arrest, like all of the paint was gone. So she was literally just like naked and cuffed. And they just had, like, they just didn't really think about it. And then we're like, we're like getting checked into the magistrate, and it's like, can we put some clothes on? Like, we're not like in the event anymore. We're literally like at the freaking jail. And they were never able really to say like why we got arrested. For Breezy, she didn't do anything. They had to like pull up some like that she had like some unpaid tickets or something, which was like really low. I just think they wanted to arrest a bunch of people. And a few of our other friends were arrested as well, like just for throwing a party.
So correct me if I'm wrong, this was a rainbow themed event that you guys had, and most of you guys were people of color. And they had undercover cops in there, and they just came in there and just targeted you guys.
Yeah, and what they had said was, like, when they arrested me specifically, the cops were like, we already told you. And I was like, this is our first show that we've ever done. And we ultimately found out that they had, like, mistaken us for the art gallery right next door. And I guess that art gallery had been selling liquor without a license, like late at nights at all of their shows. So that's what they tried to put on us. But there was nothing of that nature going on because it was a dance competition. Like, the kids were battling. Like, that's all that was going on. But that was like a really eye-opening experience, especially for like doing business in San Antonio. And like having that kind of reaction. Like, we had lots of love from the people, but like the Vice Squad was really quick to take all of our money. We had made like over $1,300 that night, and they took all of it, which was also like, that was even worse because that was like what we had set out to do. And like, now we can say we can be empowered by that because it kind of like boosted us to want to do more stuff here and to do like more things together. And having a business as like queer, like POC people in San Antonio, it's something to really be proud of because we make money and we've been getting better every single year. But just like those 2 instances, like from when we first started to like now, we're on the other side of the world and it's still happening. And like even yesterday, we were doing a photo shoot in Brackenridge, like in the park right here. And we were just photographing, like the 3 of us, it was me, Jamel, and Breezy, and someone called the cops. And it's like, you don't need a permit in Brack because it's a public space. And that's why we went there. But like someone still had a problem with it, and they had reported us for taking explicit photos, which we were totally clothed and like everything was really normal, but we have to learn how to deal with the cops, because I feel like they're always coming to us. So we've had to learn to like stay calm in those situations and like just keep them from escalating, because we know it can happen when they do.
So it sounds like homophobia and racism, they're all going into this experience. What advice would you, or what would you say to someone that feels that this is okay? It's okay to give people these types of experiences.
I think just like worrying about things that matter, because I think like there's more important things the police can be doing than policing like girls, like just like girls. And I honestly think it also comes from like also targeting like women, like really powerful women who can dance well and speak well and dress well. I think that is also like another thing that people don't necessarily want to happen. And like for people who are thinking that it's okay to target people for those things, they just need to focus on what matters and like empowering everyone to be the best they can be.
Okay, very good. So following the club raid that happened during your event, were you guys ever able to seek justice to get this, handled?
Well, ultimately, all of the charges were dropped against everyone except for me. So we were able to take like the money that we did have left over to get like lawyers to represent. And we were in court for almost 2 years, off and on. And at the end of it, the state wasn't able to provide enough evidence. And so the charges were dropped, but after like all of that time. And we did put in a complaint because we have videos of the, like all of the like violence that took place onto someone who was just like a bystander. And we never heard anything back from our complaints, and we were never able to receive our money back, even after like there was no evidence. So in that way, we did not have justice for that night.
This event, how has it impacted your life, or has it impacted your life?
Like definitely, it has groomed us all to be like super aware of like the cops and to know how to de-escalate those situations, because that wasn't even the last time we all went to jail together. Like it happened again. We were double booked, and we had a show in Austin, and then we were playing a warehouse rave in Houston. So it's like we performed in Austin, got our check, and then everyone got in the car, and we're like driving to Houston, and in the middle of nowhere, we get pulled over, and like they automatically just start searching the car, and we're just like, okay, like we're trying to go somewhere, and they immediately just arrest Bobby. Like they have him in cuffs as they're searching the car, which they haven't like found anything or like had any reason to do that yet, and they immediately cuff Bobby, who he's black, and we're like asking questions, and they like find some stuff like in Tony's car. They like had like some paraphernalia or something. It was like no actual drugs, but just like a little one of those like tiny wooden pipes that slides. And we all went to jail for paraphernalia that night, and they towed our car, and we had to spend like 13 hours in that jail, and we all looked crazy. I remember I was wearing like a nude suit, like a Britney Spears like nude suit with sparkles, and Jamel was wearing just a slip and like a thong, and Bobby had something crazy on. Tony looked crazy, but we all had to be checked in, and like everyone was like laughing at us because they had never seen like anything like that before. And like we took it like with a grain of salt because luckily we had that check from the night before. So when we got out, we were able to pay for like getting the car out of the towing place, and we didn't have to like call anyone for that, which was like really good. But Bobby didn't get out. Like all three of us got out, but Bobby was like really upset because he was the first one that was cuffed, and like there really wasn't a reason to take everyone in. And he was giving the judge like attitude and was just like visually upset and like huffing and puffing. And the judge at that point, we could all hear him from the next room over, and he was like, well, if you're gonna be acting like that, he was like, I'm gonna go to the lunch with my church, because it happened on a Saturday night, so it was Sunday when all of this was going down. And he was like, I'm gonna go have lunch with my church, and whenever I get back, we can think about letting you go. So Bobby had to go back into the jail and stay there for like 3 more hours. And in that time, we went and got the car, and then we cashed that check, and we like got everything going. And when we went back, he wasn't even out yet. It took like a long time. So that was really weird too. That was weird.
How do you feel about telling this story today? How did you feel?
Well, it like makes me sad because I just feel like it's like about to be 2020 and like things should be different. And it's not.
You guys, you as the dancers, I think you labeled you guys as female dancers. You guys have been faced, it sounds like, with a lot of trauma and constant, police encounters. What makes the hobby, the performances that you guys do worth all of that?
I think it's just the power, like being able to go onto the stage and like just be who we are, and I guess like galvanize people. And just like one of our main chants is just like there are no more safe spaces, like because a lot of people in our community like to say that like come to our party, it's a safe space, like everything's chill. But like that I think is really ignorant, because there are no more safe spaces, like nowhere in the world. And we have to kind of like arm ourselves to just be super strong.
I'm going to ask this question. Feel free to answer it or feel free to not answer it. Do you personally relate to, or do you belong to any? Do you belong with a faith group? Yes or no?
I think just my crew.
Okay, good. Do you feel like that has helped you in any kind of way?
Yes. I feel like we're always growing together, because you kind of learn from just like each interaction with each other, and just staying together for so long has been really helpful. So, yeah, we learn, and like every show is like a growing opportunity, because we perform pretty much like about once a month, and that process for those require like diligent practices and production, a lot of like pre-production, like writing, composing. We make our own music, so it's just like building something together. Just really empowers everyone, and especially saying like being able to say that we own our own business and we like make our own money that way is also, I think, something that everyone is really proud of.
I told you I would come back to this, so I'm going to come back to it. Okay, so your family, how do they react to these stories, or are they aware of these encounters that you have?
It's really interesting because of a lot of the Thank you. A lot of the like Hispanic or like Latino community in San Antonio is actually like really conservative. And like you don't really think about that like from, like you wouldn't expect that, but a lot of them are like really conservative. And like although my family is supportive of what we do, I think even they are really like just like with like all the news and like all the headlines, it's like they just don't want us to be targeted. So I think it's like, it's kind of like a mixed bag for them.
Do you see hope within this, you know, within all this work that you guys are doing?
Yes. Like especially like in the messages that we are like putting out there, it's like activism that happens like on stage, and like every performance is different, and it has like different tones to it as far as like what we're trying to accomplish. And I think like one of the strongest messages is just to be visible.
Is there anything else that you would like to share with me today?
I think this project is really important, and I hope that we can have like more discourse in San Antonio, because a lot of things that I hear like from working in the community and just like being around is that like even during Black History Month, like I think there's a lot of discussion that still needs to be had between like Black communities and Latino communities, because I think there's like still a lot of opportunity for just like discussion and visibility, because you see that in San Antonio as it's growing so much, these communities do become somewhat like erased. Like there's some historically Black neighborhoods in like central San Antonio that are no longer like Black communities. They're all like Hispanic communities now. And I think like everyone needs to do their due diligence to like honor and respect the origins of like why the places we come from are how they are, because even though like sometimes it can be negative, there's like a lot of positivity you can bring from that. And I can say that like even growing up like in a family that is like super Mexican, like even like my grandfather, he was really crazy, but he would always say like when the girls would start dating, like no gringos and no negritos. Like they really want to keep it like in the like Latin pool. They want the babies to be like Latin. And like I totally like think that's really weird, but that's like a generational thing that a lot of that I think like is super like that the Mexican community really holds on to. And I would like to see them just be more open and like more respectful, because that is like a really old way of thinking, especially in Texas. It's like it's really old.
I'm sorry, I didn't ask you earlier. Do you have any kids personally?
I don't.
If you were able to have some, or if you were able to have nieces or nephews, would you honor that legacy of teaching, I guess you could say?
Probably not. Like my family's already like super on the fence, because I don't want to like physically have children, and I want to like adopt children in Texas, because a lot of the people I know are like orphans, and they had really bad experiences in the Texas system. So I would love to, you know, get some Texas babies and like give them a good life. And my family thinks it's really weird. Like they definitely want blood babies, which I think is a really weird concept. But yeah, like I'm really open to like teaching more open ways. Like there's really beautiful parts of any culture that should be like legalized, but there are like some parts that should be left behind. So